The arrival. The vast darkness of space rippled as the Tyraxian armada emerged from hyperspace. 27 warships, each the size of a small city, appeared in perfect formation above Earth. Their hulls gleamed with an iridescent blue-green metal unknown to human science, intricate patterns etched into their surfaces that told the story of 3 millennia of conquest. On the command deck of the flagship Eternal Dominion, Grand Admiral Zorix stood with his 4 arms clasped behind his back. His scaled skin shimmered in the dim light of the bridge, the bioluminescent patches along his temples pulsing with anticipation. For 8 centuries, he had led the expansion of the Tyraxian Empire across 12 galaxies. Earth would be merely the latest entry in the Empire's vast catalog of subjugated worlds. Scans complete. Grand Admiral, reported Sub-Commander Vex, her cranial ridges flushing purple with excitement. Primitive technology as expected. No planetary defense system. Nuclear capabilities present, but rudimentary. No threat to our vessels. Grand Admiral Zorix nodded, his vertical pupils dilating. Excellent. Prepare the standard declaration of Imperial Dominion. Full spectrum broadcast on all their communication frequencies. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. This was a ritual they had performed hundreds of times across countless worlds. The Tyraxian conquest was always executed with precise, almost ceremonial formality. First came the declaration, then the inevitable surrender, followed by the implementation of imperial order. Broadcasting systems ready, Grand Admiral, announced the communications officer. Zorix straightened his ornate uniform, adorned with the metallic scales of honor earned through centuries of successful conquests. He positioned himself before the transmitter drones, which would capture and project his image to every screen on the planet below. Begin transmission. On Earth, it was Tuesday afternoon. In New York, the annual Global Marketing Innovation Summit was in full swing at Madison Square Garden. Thousands of advertising executives, brand managers, and social media influencers had gathered to witness the unveiling of groundbreaking marketing campaigns. Tanya Williams, CEO of NextGen Media, had just taken the stage to announce her company's revolutionary new virtual reality platform, when every screen in the venue suddenly switched to the image of Grand Admiral Zorix. Similar interruptions occurred on televisions, smartphones, computers, and digital billboards worldwide. The alien commander's imposing figure towered on the screens, his 4 arms spread wide in what the Tyraxians considered a gesture of absolute authority. People of Earth, Zorix began, his voice processed through advanced translation algorithms to be understood in all human languages simultaneously. I am Grand Admiral Zorix of the Eternal Tyraxian Empire. Your world now falls under our dominion. For 3,000 years, we have brought order and advancement to primitive civilizations across the cosmos. Resistance is not only futile but illogical. Submit to imperial authority, and your transition to becoming productive members of our glorious empire will be smooth and beneficial. He paused, expecting the usual reaction. Panic, confusion, perhaps some futile calls for resistance. Instead, the audience at Madison Square Garden erupted into thunderous applause. Tanya Williams, momentarily stunned by the interruption, quickly recovered and pointed enthusiastically at the screens. Now that's what I call disruptive marketing. Whoever is behind this campaign deserves every award in the book. The crowd cheered even louder. Phones were raised to capture the moment. Within seconds, clips of the alien invasion marketing stunt began circulating on social media. On the Eternal Dominion, Grand Admiral Zorix watched the human reaction with growing confusion. What is happening? This is not the expected response protocol. Sub-Commander Vex studied the incoming data streams. Sir, they appear to believe our declaration is some form of entertainment or advertising. Impossible. Zorix's bioluminescent patches flashed bright orange with irritation. No species has ever mistaken the declaration. Check the translation algorithms. Translations are functioning perfectly, Grand Admiral. The communications officer confirmed. They understand our words. They simply Don't believe them. This was unprecedented. In 3,000 years of conquests, the Tyraxian Empire had encountered many responses to their arrival: fear, awe, religious reverence, even immediate surrender, but never had a species responded with amusement. "They're creating and sharing modified versions of your image and message, sir," reported the intelligence analyst, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Adding colorful text overlays with humorous commentary. The humans call them memes." Zorix's irritation turned to bewilderment. "Show me." The main view screen displayed a collection of images. Grand Admiral Zorix, with cartoon sunglasses added to his face. His serious declaration juxtaposed with text reading, "When you're trying to sound threatening, but it's only Tuesday." His four-armed pose captioned, "Me reaching for snacks at 3 a.m. "This is disrespectful," Zorix murmured, more confused than angry. In 3 millennia of imperial history, no one had ever dared mock a Grand Admiral's declaration. Within hours, #Alien Invasion Challenge was trending globally. Humans worldwide were filming themselves mimicking the Grand Admiral's four-armed pose and reciting his declaration with exaggerated seriousness, often while wearing makeshift alien costumes. Earth's governments, initially alarmed, were now struggling to determine if the broadcast was genuine or an elaborate hoax. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session where Ambassador Chen of China suggested it might be a psychological warfare operation by a rival nation. Several military forces were placed on high alert, but the public's reaction made it difficult to maintain a sense of crisis. "Grand Admiral," Sub-Commander Vex reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet. Their global governance body wishes to establish communication." Zorix nodded solemnly. "Perhaps they're finally taking this seriously. Put them through." The view screen flickered to show a panel of human representatives from the UN Security Council. At their center sat Secretary General Adeyemi, a woman with dignified gray hair and a carefully neutral expression. "Greetings, Grand Admiral Zorix," she began formally. "I am Secretary General Adeyemi of the United Nations. On behalf of Earth, I must ask, is your communication genuine, or is this some form of extraterrestrial prank?" Zorix's cranial ridges darkened with indignation. "Prank? The eternal Tyraxian Empire does not engage in pranks, Secretary General. We are the dominant power in 12 galaxies. We have subjugated over 8,000 civilizations. Your world now belongs to us." Secretary General Adeyemi maintained her composure. "I see. And what exactly does this subjugation entail?" "The usual protocols," Zorix replied as if it were obvious. "Implementation of imperial bureaucracy, installation of governance structures, cultural integration, resource allocation quotas. Nothing unusual." The Secretary General exchanged glances with her colleagues before responding. "We would be interested in learning more about these protocols before making any decisions regarding Earth's relationship with your empire." "Decisions?" Zorix was genuinely perplexed. "You misunderstand, Secretary General. This is not a negotiation. The declaration has been made. Implementation begins immediately." "I'm afraid Earth doesn't operate that way, Grand Admiral," Adeyemi replied firmly. "Any changes to our planetary governance would require extensive discussion, democratic processes, and likely many, many committee meetings." Zorix's patience was wearing thin. "Perhaps you need a demonstration of our power." "That won't be necessary," Adeyemi said quickly. "We propose a diplomatic meeting instead. Send representatives to Earth, and we will discuss this situation like civilized beings." After some deliberation with his officers, Zorix agreed. A diplomatic approach might help these humans understand the seriousness of their situation. He would send a delegation led by Imperial High Diplomat Kras, known for his ability to facilitate smooth transitions of power on newly conquered worlds. The Tyraxian diplomatic shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere the following day, landing on the carefully prepared grounds of the United Nations headquarters in New York. A red carpet had been laid out, flanked by an honor guard. Media from around the world gathered to broadcast the historic event. High Diplomat Kraz emerged first, his ceremonial robes flowing around his tall, slender form. Behind him came a retinue of Terraxian officials, each specialized in different aspects of imperial integration. Their expressions were solemn and dignified as they approached the waiting human delegation. What they hadn't anticipated was the crowd of onlookers beyond the security perimeter. Many were wearing hastily created alien costumes, some specifically mimicking the Grand Admiral's appearance from the broadcast. They cheered and waved signs with slogans like, "Well, see you to Earth," and "Take me to your Li-Adr," and most confusingly to the Terraxians, "We come in peace," which made no sense, as they were the ones arriving, not the humans. High Diplomat Kraz maintained his composure with effort. He had overseen the integration of hundreds of worlds, but none had begun quite like this. He approached Secretary General Adeyemi and performed the formal Terraxian greeting, extending his upper arms horizontally while placing his lower hands over his chest. "Secretary General, I bring formal greetings from the eternal Terraxian Empire," he announced gravely. Adeyemi returned a respectful bow. "Welcome to Earth, High Diplomat Kraz. We look forward to productive discussions." The human and Terraxian delegations moved inside for their first formal meeting. The large conference room was arranged with a circular table, symbolizing equality, a concept that immediately troubled Kraz, as Terraxian diplomatic protocol strictly required hierarchical seating arrangements with Empire representatives in elevated positions. "Before we begin," Kraz said, "I must clarify that these are not negotiations. We are here to explain the implementation process for your world's integration into the Empire." Ambassador Ramirez of Mexico leaned forward. "Perhaps you could start by telling us about the benefits of this integration." Kraz blinked slowly, confused by the question. "Benefits? The benefit is becoming part of the eternal Terraxian Empire. No further benefits are required." The human delegates exchanged glances. "Let me rephrase," said Ambassador Ramirez. "What's in it for us?" "The privilege of imperial membership," Kraz replied, increasingly bewildered. "Protection from cosmic threats. Access to the imperial knowledge repositories, though limited to appropriate technological levels for your developmental stage." "And what would be required of Earth?" asked Ambassador Singh of India. "Standard resource quotas, implementation of imperial governance structures, adoption of Terraxian as the primary administrative language, cultural realignment programs to reduce resistance tendencies." The room fell silent. Finally, Secretary General Adeyemi spoke. "High Diplomat Kraz, I believe we have a fundamental misunderstanding here. Earth is not seeking new governance. Our planet consists of sovereign nations with their own governments, laws, and traditions. Such divisions are inefficient," Kraz replied dismissively. "Imperial unity has proven superior." Ambassador Wu of China raised an eyebrow. "And if we decline this unity?" Kraz's cranial ridges pulsed with a faint glow of concern. The concept of declination was not part of the standard integration protocol. No planet had ever simply declined to be conquered. "Declining is not an option provided within the Imperial Directive of Planetary Acquisition," he stated. "Well," said Ambassador Jones of the United States with a smile that did not reach her eyes, "we humans are quite fond of creating new options where none existed before." As the meeting progressed, it became increasingly clear to the Terraxian delegation that these humans did not understand their position. They asked questions no newly conquered species had ever asked. They proposed alternatives. They suggested committees to study the implications of various aspects of imperial governance. Most bewildering of all, they invited the Terraxians to a cultural exchange dinner that evening, as if this were a friendly diplomatic mission rather than the beginning of their planetary subjugation. That night, the Terraxian delegation found themselves seated at elegantly set tables in the UN Plaza, surrounded by human diplomats, cultural representatives, and, inexplicably, several human celebrities whose function in society Kraz couldn't quite determine. As various Earth foods were served, most analyzed and approved by Tyraxian biological specialists. Humans approached the aliens with curiosity rather than fear. They asked personal questions. Did Tyraxians have families? What kind of music did they enjoy? Did they play sports? The concept of casual conversation with a conquering force was entirely alien to the Tyraxians. Their confusion only grew when a human female approached High Diplomat Kraz and asked if she could take a selfie with him, positioning herself beside the bewildered diplomat and capturing the image on her communication device. By the time the diplomatic mission returned to the Eternal Dominion, High Diplomat Kraz was thoroughly disoriented. He reported to Grand Admiral Zorix with uncharacteristic hesitation. "Grand Admiral, the humans are unusual. They do not respond according to any known species pattern. They treat our conquest declaration as a social engagement. They ask questions about our personal lives. They take recreational images with us." Zorix's bioluminescent patches pulsed with concern. "Can their resistance be overcome?" "Sir," Kraz replied carefully, "I'm not certain they understand they are supposed to be resisting. Or submitting, for that matter. They seem to think this is some form of cultural exchange program." As the Tyraxian leadership deliberated on how to proceed with this unprecedented situation, humans across Earth continued their own responses. Memes about the alien visitors multiplied. Late-night comedy shows featured impressions of Grand Admiral Zorix. Fashion designers rushed to create alien-inspired clothing lines with 4 sleeves. And in universities, government laboratories, and intelligence agencies around the world, humans began analyzing every second of footage. Every word spoken, every detail observed about the Tyraxian Empire, gathering information, identifying patterns, and preparing for whatever might come next. The conquest of Earth was not proceeding according to the imperial standard. It was becoming increasingly clear that these humans were unlike any species the Tyraxians had encountered in 3,000 years of galactic dominion. The question was, what should the Empire do about it? The incomprehensible resistance. 2 weeks after the initial contact, the Tyraxian Empire implemented Phase 2 of planetary acquisition, bureaucratic integration. If the humans wouldn't acknowledge conquest through declaration, perhaps the weight of imperial administration would make their new status clear. The flagship Eternal Dominion dispatched 50 shuttlecraft to major cities around the globe. Each carried teams of imperial administrators with their distinctive purple robes and ceremonial data tablets. Their mission: establish imperial administrative centers and begin the formal process of planetary integration. In Tokyo, Chief Administrator Lorx and his team set up their center in a building provided by the Japanese government. As instructed, they displayed the imperial banners, arranged their processing stations according to official regulations, and prepared for the methodical registration of Earth's newest imperial subjects. At precisely 8 o'clock local time, Administrator Lorx opened the doors, expecting the usual lines of subdued, apprehensive natives waiting to be processed. Instead, he found a crowd of smiling humans holding beverage containers. "Welcome to Earth," exclaimed a young woman at the front. "We brought coffee and donuts for you all." Administrator Lorx stared in confusion at the proffered items. "We are here to register you as imperial subjects," he stated firmly. "Yes, we got the memo," the woman replied cheerfully. "But it's your first day, and everybody needs coffee on their first day at a new job. I'm Yuki, by the way. I'll be your liaison from the Tokyo Metropolitan Government." Before Lorx could formulate a response that aligned with imperial protocol, his center was filled with chattering humans offering refreshments and asking his team questions about everything from Tyraxian homeworld weather to their opinions on Earth cuisine. Similar scenes played out in administrative centers worldwide. In Rio de Janeiro, humans brought music and spontaneously began teaching Tyraxian administrators to dance. In Nairobi, the administrators were presented with traditional beaded jewelry as welcome gifts. In Sydney, someone brought a baby kangaroo that caused a complete breakdown of Imperial protocol when several administrators abandoned their posts to pet the unusual creature. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Grand Admiral Zorix received increasingly bewildering reports from his administrative teams. The humans have created a coup entertainment system at our Berlin center. Read one message. They are providing refreshments and playing games while waiting to be processed. Administrator Vex in New York reports humans are submitting registration forms with decorative stickers and drawings. Another stated. The Cairo Center reports humans are bringing small copies of their offspring and requesting what they call alien selfies before registration. A third message detailed. Most troubling of all, Administrator Troll reports humans in Auckland have established an express lane and VIP registration area without authorization, complete with homemade signage mimicking our imperial aesthetic. The Empire's famous bureaucracy, which had smothered resistance on thousands of worlds through its relentless, soul-crushing tedium, was being transformed into something resembling a festival. Grand Admiral Zorix convened an emergency meeting of his senior staff. This defiance cannot be tolerated, he declared, his bioluminescent patches pulsing angry red. The registration process is sacred. It is meant to impress upon new subjects the weight and inevitability of imperial rule. With respect, Grand Admiral, ventured Sub-Commander Vex cautiously. I'm not certain the humans recognize our administrative procedures as instruments of subjugation. They seem to view them as social events. Imperial psychologist Menks, who had been observing human behavior since their arrival, cleared his throat. Sir, I believe we may be dealing with a unique psychological profile. Humans appear to transform systems designed to control them into opportunities for social interaction. They're not resisting our bureaucracy. They're subverting it through friendliness. Zorix's vertical pupils narrowed to slits. Then we must make our intentions unmistakable. Prepare the formal Imperial Proclamation of Mandatory Compliance. The formal Imperial Proclamation was reserved for particularly stubborn species. It outlined, in excruciating detail, the consequences of non-compliance with imperial directives. In 3,000 years, no civilization had continued resistance after receiving the proclamation. The document, running to 12,387 pages, was transmitted to Earth's governments with instructions that it be read aloud in its entirety on all communication channels. Earth's response came 3 days later. The humans had created a condensed version, reducing the 12,387 pages to a brisk 24-page executive summary that somehow managed to reframe the dire warnings as areas for future negotiation and mutual growth. Even more insulting, they had illustrated this summary with colorful infographics and added discussion questions at the end of each section. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening with the Tyraxian personnel stationed on Earth. They were beginning to adapt. Reports indicated that administrative staff were accepting local refreshments, engaging in casual conversations with humans, and in some disturbing cases, adopting human gestures like the thumbs up and the high five. Most concerning of all, a video had gone viral showing Administrator Plex in Chicago participating in something called a flash mob dance with local humans during his lunch break. The Imperial High Council, an advisory body of ancient and respected Tyraxians, convened to address what was now being called the Earth Anomaly. For the first time in centuries, the council chamber was filled with raised voices and conflicting opinions. This contamination must be contained, insisted High Councillor Drav, the eldest and most conservative member. Recall all personnel immediately. Place Earth under quarantine. It may be necessary to consider extreme measures. Everyone understood what extreme measures meant. The Empire possessed weapons capable of rendering a planet uninhabitable. Such measures had only been employed twice in Imperial history, against species deemed too dangerous to integrate or coexist with. Surely that's premature, countered Councillor Zima, among the youngest of the High Council at merely 400 years of age. We face not military resistance, but Cultural incompatibility. Perhaps we should reconsider whether Earth is suitable for standard integration. The debate raged for days without resolution. Meanwhile, Earth continued its unorthodox response to imperial presence. In the administrative centers, humans had begun assisting the Tyraxian staff, showing them shortcuts that streamlined their rigid procedures. While administrators knew these modifications violated imperial protocols, many found themselves implementing the more efficient methods. My processing rate has increased by 47%, Administrator Krell reported from Mumbai. The humans suggested a parallel processing system that allows simultaneous handling of multiple registration elements. Such efficiency should have been celebrated, but it represented a dangerous precedent, humans changing imperial systems rather than adapting to them. Even more troubling was the cultural contamination. Junior officers on the Eternal Dominion were being caught using human expressions. Cool had somehow entered the Tyraxian lexicon. Several crew members had been reprimanded for attempting to fist-bump their superiors instead of performing the proper imperial salute. And then there was the music. Despite stringent prohibitions, human music had found its way onto the flagship. Security officers discovered junior crew members gathering in storage compartments during rest periods to listen to something called K-pop and practice the choreography. Grand Admiral Zorix faced the most serious crisis of his 800-year career. The conquest of Earth wasn't failing because of military resistance or diplomatic maneuvering. It was failing because humans were friendly, adaptable, enthusiastic, and somehow these qualities were proving more contagious than the Empire's formidable will. In his private chamber, Zorix reviewed the latest intelligence. Human digital networks were flooded with content about the Tyraxians, some accurate, much of it wildly speculative or deliberately humorous. Humans had created fictional narratives about romantic relationships between their species and Tyraxians. They had composed songs about the encounter. Unauthorized toy manufacturers were already producing plush versions of Tyraxian administrators. Most inexplicable of all, many humans seemed genuinely interested in Tyraxian culture. Universities were offering hastily assembled courses in Tyraxian studies. Linguistic experts were attempting to learn the imperial language. Cultural exchange programs were being proposed. This is not conquest, Zorix murmured to himself. What is it? The Grand Admiral made an unprecedented decision. He would go to Earth himself and confront their leaders directly. No Grand Admiral had set foot on an unsubdued planet in over 2,000 years. The risk was considered unacceptable, but Zorix saw no alternative. 2 days later, with full ceremonial honors, Grand Admiral Zorix descended to Earth aboard his personal command shuttle, landing at the specially prepared site at the United Nations headquarters. A formation of Imperial Guards preceded him, their ceremonial armor gleaming in Earth's sunlight. Zorix emerged from his shuttle, resplendent in his full ceremonial uniform with all 800 years of honors displayed. He stood tall, his 4 arms positioned in the stance of imperial authority, his bioluminescent patches glowing bright blue to indicate his supreme rank. Secretary General Adeyemi and representatives from Earth's major nations waited to receive him. Behind them gathered diplomats, officials, security personnel, and much to Zorix's consternation, hundreds of civilians who had somehow obtained permission to witness the event. Many were recording the proceedings on their personal devices. Some were wearing replicas of Tyraxian clothing. Grand Admiral Zorix, Secretary General Adeyemi greeted him with a respectful bow. Earth welcomes you. Secretary General, Zorix responded formally. I come to address the irregular situation between our civilizations. Of course. Please, join us inside for discussions. The Grand Hall of the United Nations had been prepared for this historic meeting. Zorix noted with mild approval that at least here, proper formality seemed to be observed. The imperial anthem played as he entered. Guards lined the walkway. Dignitaries rose to honor his entrance. Once all were seated, Zorix addressed the assembly, his voice carrying effortlessly through the vast chamber. For 3,000 years, the eternal Tyraxian Empire has brought order and advancement to the cosmos, he began. 8,000 worlds acknowledge imperial authority. Resistance has always proven futile and illogical. He paused, scanning the assembled humans with his large vertical pupilled eyes. Yet Earth resists, not through violence or defiance, but through friendliness, through adaptation, through enthusiasm. This is unprecedented and unacceptable. Secretary General Adeyemi responded calmly. Grand Admiral, we do not see ourselves as resisting. We see ourselves as engaging with a new cosmic neighbor. Earth has thousands of cultures, religions, governments, and perspectives. We are accustomed to diversity and coexistence. The Empire does not coexist, Zorix stated firmly. The Empire rules. Perhaps, offered President Torres of the Brazilian Federation, there is a third option beyond ruling and being ruled. Perhaps we could be allies. The concept was so alien to Tyraxian thinking that Zorix's translator implant briefly struggled with the term. Allies, with a non-integrated species, the Empire had treaties, yes, and trade agreements with a few unusually advanced civilizations, but allies implied equality. Partnership. Before Zorix could formulate a response, the assembly doors burst open. A junior Tyraxian officer rushed in, breaching all protocols of imperial dignity. It was Sub-Lieutenant Vix, one of the communications specialists who had been stationed on Earth. Grand Admiral, he exclaimed, forgetting even to perform the proper salute. Urgent news from the homeworld. All four of Zorix's arms stiffened in alarm. No officer would dare interrupt such a proceeding without catastrophic cause. Speak, he commanded. Sir, the Imperial Palace has received fan mail. There was a moment of complete silence. Explain, Zorix demanded, his voice dangerously quiet. Sub-Lieutenant Vix swallowed hard. Humans have been sending messages to the Emperor. Millions of them. They discovered our quantum communication frequencies, and they're sending greetings, questions, art they've created inspired by Tyraxian designs, music they think the Emperor might enjoy. Zorix's bioluminescent patches flashed rapidly through colors of shock, alarm, and disbelief. The Imperial Quantum Network is the most secure communication system in 12 galaxies. It cannot be breached. It wasn't breached, sir, explained Vix. The humans just figured it out and started using it. They seem to think it's a public communication channel. From among the Earth delegation, Dr. Eliza Chen, head of the International Quantum Research Institute, cleared her throat. We apologize for any confusion, Grand Admiral. Once we analyzed the quantum frequency patterns of your communications, it seemed logical to respond on the same channels. We meant no offense. Zorix turned his gaze to the human scientist. You derived our quantum communication principles through observation. Well, yes, Dr. Chen replied as if it were obvious. Your ships emit distinctive quantum signatures. We merely established compatible transmission protocols. This was impossible. Human technology was centuries behind such capabilities. Unless. How? Zorix demanded. Dr. Chen shrugged. Collaboration. Thousands of scientists worldwide sharing data and insights. A few brilliant intuitive leaps. Some trial and error. The usual process. The usual process had taken the Tyraxian Empire 300 years of dedicated research by their most brilliant minds. These humans had reverse engineered it in 2 weeks through collaboration. At that moment, Grand Admiral Zorix of the eternal Tyraxian Empire, conqueror of 8,000 worlds, experienced something entirely new in his 8 centuries of existence. Doubt. What if the Empire's approach was not the only path to advancement? What if conquest and hierarchical control were not the most efficient means of progress? What if the human model of chaotic, collaborative development actually offered advantages the Empire had never considered? The implications were staggering. If humans could achieve such technological feats through their disorganized, democratic methods, what else might they accomplish? And more importantly, what might they teach the Empire? Zorix made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Secretary General Adeyemi, he said formally, the Tyraxian Empire wishes to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. A murmur of surprise ran through the assembly. Not conquest, Adeyemi asked carefully. Not conquest, Zorix confirmed. The Empire recognizes that Earth represents a unique case. The human delegation broke into applause. Several members appeared to be restraining themselves from more exuberant celebrations. We would be honored to establish diplomatic relations with the Tyraxian Empire, Secretary General Adeyemi replied with dignified pleasure. We have already prepared facilities for a permanent Tyraxian embassy. Of course they had. These bewildering humans had been operating on the assumption of peaceful relations from the beginning. In the weeks that followed, the Tyraxian fleet withdrew from Earth orbit, leaving behind only a diplomatic mission. The Emperor, after receiving Grand Admiral Zorix's extraordinary report, declared Earth a special autonomous region, a designation created specifically for this unprecedented situation. Cultural exchanges began in earnest. Human students eagerly enrolled in programs to learn about Tyraxian history and language. Tyraxian diplomats found themselves invited to human homes for dinner, to sporting events, to concerts and festivals. Most shocking of all to imperial sensibilities, the Emperor received an invitation to visit Earth as an honored guest, not as a conqueror or ruler, but as an equal. After much deliberation, and against the advice of his more conservative counselors, he accepted. 6 months after the Tyraxian ships first appeared above Earth, Emperor Zix of the eternal Tyraxian Empire made his historic visit to the small blue planet that had defied imperial conquest, not through force, but through friendliness. The imperial processional moved through the streets of New York City, the Emperor's ceremonial transport surrounded by imperial guards and honor formations from Earth's militaries. Millions of humans lined the route, cheering, waving, and holding signs welcoming the Emperor to Earth. Many wore blue-green face paint to mimic Tyraxian skin tones. Children sat on parents' shoulders, waving tiny Tyraxian flags alongside Earth's various national banners. Street vendors sold Emperor Pops, ice cream treats colored blue-green with 4 stick arms protruding from them. Watching the spectacle from the imperial transport, Grand Vizier Trax leaned toward the Emperor. Your Eternal Majesty, I have witnessed 1,000 diplomatic missions across the Empire. I have never seen anything like this. Emperor Zix, 5,000 years old and ruler of 12 galaxies, observed the cheering humans with ancient thoughtful eyes. Nor have I, Grand Vizier. These humans are different. At the United Nations, the Emperor addressed representatives from every Earth nation. His speech was broadcast live to every corner of the planet. For 5 millennia, I have ruled the Tyraxian Empire, he began. In that time, our civilization has expanded across 12 galaxies, bringing 8,000 worlds into imperial unity. We have always believed our path, the path of conquest, hierarchy, and centralized authority, was the only route to advancement and order. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the human delegates. Earth has shown us another path exists. Your chaotic, collaborative approach to challenges has achieved what our rigid structures could not anticipate. Your diversity, which we would have standardized, is the source of your creative strength. Your enthusiasm for difference, which we would have suppressed, drives your rapid advancement. The Emperor made a formal gesture with all 4 arms that no human could interpret, but that sent shockwaves through every Tyraxian watching. The ancient recognition of equal worth, a ceremonial movement not performed toward a non-Tyraxian species in over 4,000 years. The eternal Tyraxian Empire recognizes Earth not as a subject world, but as a peer civilization. We offer not conquest, but alliance.